All right. It's 3 minutes past. So to use up the hour, we are going to go. We're really excited that y'all are here. I'm Jerry Maynor. I'm a senior director at JFF. I'm one of the leads of our Pathways to Prosperity network and coalition. And so we host these events monthly to continue the learning and sharing and networking across our partners. And so this time we're focusing on the leadership and policy lever of our P2P framework. And so I'm going to do some quick introductions of JFF for anyone who might be new. And then we're going to get right into the content with our guest speakers today. So thanks for being here. If you're unfamiliar with JFF, we're a 40-year-old nonprofit, and our mission is really to transform both education and workforce to ensure that more people can access high quality jobs and economic advancement. So, our North Star is something that we can only achieve through deep partnership that also scales across many types of intermediaries, functions, sectors, and agencies. So it's really great to see you all showing up as higher ed, as departments of ed, intermediaries. You're exactly the audience that we seek to reach through our work. We are coming to you as leaders and representatives of our Pathways to Prosperity work, which is really something that we have originated and maintained over more than a decade now, really focused on making the connections that young people need to have across systems and across sectors to ensure that those systems work for them versus creating lots of different challenges, barriers, obstacles to knowing how to access careers, education, training, and credentials that really, help them achieve their aspirations in life. So we've been doing this work in over 150 regions in 32 states over the 12 plus years we've been doing this. So we're really excited to continue that in this virtual environment where we just connect with new and old faces all the time. Um, the work that we do is really focused on bringing to the helm all the different partners that we know are essential in creating these systems that all of us, right? All of us, not just students and learners, but like we constantly navigate as professionals. Um, K-12, business and industry, 2-year and 4-year partners, workforce development. You can, of course, create opportunities for folks only engaging, on one or two components of this helm. But we think the most advancement and creating the most opportunity for those furthest from it really happens when all of these folks are at the table. So that's key to understanding our work. And then our framework is really a 5-part framework that I don't need to tell you all. The field is evolving quickly. There's many more people doing pathways work than there were 12 years ago. Also, we're facing a totally different sort of like funding environment between state and federal government and state and federal policy. And of course, the ever changing and is it exciting? Is it terrifying? Who knows? But artificial intelligence that, we're all mandated to insert in talking about education and workforce right now. Joking, but it feels like it, doesn't it? Let's keep going so that um, we just want you to know, like, this is one part of how we connect with the field. We have members within our network who we've had over the decades, and if any of you were with us just this fall in Phoenix, Arizona, you got to see the work that the state of Arizona has done over the past 10 years in terms of moving from a um, small set of actors like really thinking about pathways to really large concerted efforts statewide. You see that this work is sustainable, but it takes a lot of intentional collaboration. And so we support that through our coalition, and we support that also through different types of services. So let me take some water and we'll go to the next slide. These are the objectives today. And just to do some additional framing, um, we want to give you a lens into how we, as a national nonprofit that both supports the field but also lobbies all of those involved for creating better policy and strong support of evidence-based practices. We want to give you insight of like how we do that policy work and why that matters and what insights we might be able to offer. So that's where our first guest speaker comes in, Erica, who's a JFFer like me. And then we want to show you that transition or translation from good policy to good implementation through a leadership lens where we're going to feature Deanne Meadows from My Future NC, who's a current partner and leader in the field in the state of North Carolina. So that's the interchange here. And so whether you're someone who um, Courtney, I have no idea how to remove that little squiggle either, so I can see I
I'm
can see
working
you're
on it. Sorry, Jerry.
you're working on that, but we'll take IT support in the chat if you've. Oh, look, it disappeared. Thank you. Um, we we want this to be a conversation with you. Of course, like we're gonna do a bit of talking, but we do have time at the end to like engage. And of course, you can put questions in the chat at any time, and we'll try to keep that thread going throughout. So quickly, for myself, I've done an introduction, but I'm based in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I'm born and raised. And I used to work at the state level prior to coming to JFF. I've worked at the state government level, as well as K-12 and higher ed. So as we think about the intersection of both policy and implementation, this is the more detailed look at our framework. And this is what we think makes for strong and effective pathways that leaders have to come together to understand how policy impacts the ability to fund or actually implement high quality practices. But then they also have to have a clear vision for how they can do that together. And given that, as we talked about at the start, like this is always cross sector, it really comes down to like strong human behaviors and systems for doing that well. And in fact, that's really the only way to scale. Um, I do want to, I'm like really struggling here with my back of my throat. I don't know if it's seasonal or what. Um, we are always excited to have leaders like you join us from across sectors because um, you'll have insights on how is this being sustained or scaled where you are. And Deanne's going to really give us a strong example of what their vision is in North Carolina. All right, next slide. So let's quickly just like put this lever into an illustration. For my time, 6-ish years at the state government level, my really simple way of thinking about policy implementation comes down to these three big levers that we have. So there's compliance, which is not a bad thing, but a way that we really define what are the rules, what are the minimum expectations. That's essential for doing any good work. And then establishing incentives that can be both positive or negative that really reward and or push and pull between, what's convenient to do versus what the desired behavior and outcomes are. And then you get those incentives really moving the field, moving behavior through the right support, right? If you don't know how to do something, you probably can't comply and you probably cannot get to the right incentive or like the desired incentive. So states and system leaders often really have that strong lever and most positive lever to use data, to use large um, bodies of either expertise or resources to deliver to the folks who need it. And so that's a really simple way of just thinking about how do you move from a policy to implementation. Next slide. Um, so a quick example, in my time at the state of Tennessee, we implemented a college promise program statewide. So I'm using that as a convenient tool, and it's one that, many of us, many states have now, and so you might be familiar with. So I'll let you all read, but you can see how this interplay of compliance, incentives, and support starts to make a program possible. This feels like I think it was like, wasn't it Marco Rubio who like had to like chug the tiny water bottle in the middle of a debate? I think that's the right person, but feels like my moment. So giving you a moment to digest and moving on. With those things in place, the compliance, incentives, and support, I think we all know, and there is evidence in the field that you can really drive behavior change. So, in the context of Tennessee, um, Tennessee has had and continues to have one of the highest FAFSA completion rates in the country. That doesn't just happen because of the college promise. Like we all know, like we've had challenges in enrollment across COVID era and across just a changing sort of a changing relationship to the idea of like what is college for. But we've seen that consistently because of it drove collaboration around these shared incentives for both K-12 and higher ed. And while we saw an immediate boost in two-year enrollment, for instance, we actually saw that balance back out to two-year and four-year because four years responded by matching those public scholarship dollars or adding programs that would be promise eligible. So these are all things, right, that maybe they would have happened over time without uh, without this in place, but it happened really quickly in a really short period of time by that major mechanism of saying, "Hey, we're going to make college tuition at our community and technical colleges guaranteed for all of our high school graduates." So I just want to give you a really simple example before we jump into talking about how we see policy and how we see really career advising specifically being a major policy push right now across many states and with many different levers for driving stronger career navigation and career advising systems. So, very grateful to hand it over to my colleague, Erica Cuevas.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry, and the full Pathways to Prosperity team for inviting me to join you all today. I'm Erica Cuevas, Director of Education Policy at JFF. I work on a variety of policy issues in the pathway space, including career navigation and advising. And I'll be quickly talking about first, our approach at JFF to policy work and really building from what Jerry was just mentioning. And then we'll give a deep dive into some recent policy scanning work and results that we've been doing in this space as well. So first, at JFF, we focus on both federal and state policy issues. Our approach to policy includes policy research and analysis, really doing in-depth reviews and scans about policies and practices happening across the country. So we'll be really diving into this area for today's session. We do a lot in regards to informing policymakers at the federal and state level, giving them technical assistance and information about good practice happening across the country and where policy may be serving as a barrier to pathways development. We also develop policy solutions for the organization and put out our position statements. And then we think about strategic communications and really getting out our perspective, really helping lead the field on key areas where we would like to see policy change. And so we do all of this because we believe policy and advocacy is a critical and plays a critical role when it comes to systems change and also scaling innovation. So we can move away from pockets of innovation to really broad scale practice to touch and reach the most individuals as possible. So that's a little bit about our policy approach. Before diving in specifically to the 50-state policy scan that we conducted on career navigation, I want to first provide a little bit more context on what do we mean by career navigation at JFF. So we know career navigation is a core pillar with the Pathways to Prosperity Network. Really building from that, about a year ago, we partnered with American Student Assistance, or ASA, to develop the ASA Center for Career Navigation at JFF. The center is largely focused on supporting 16 to 24-year-olds and helping them navigate what is next after high school. So we do a lot of work in this center related to communications, policy and advocacy, really putting out resources for career navigation practitioners and young people and parents themselves. So that's a little bit about the center. Next slide. And when we talk about career navigation, we're really talking about a set of interconnected activities that help, again, young people navigate what is next for them after high school. So, when done effectively, it's an ongoing nonlinear process that happens over one's lifetime. It's not a one and done experience. And while career decisions are inherently personal, the experience of navigating today's learn and work options can be very cumbersome, confusing, and complex without formal and informal structures and guidance that we can give to young people. That's why we believe career navigation services are very critical and need to be provided for young people. So, this slide quickly recaps what we mean when we talk about career navigation: lifelong, nonlinear, very individualized, but the ecosystem in which a young person is operating within matters. We want to ensure that cross-system alignment and coherence. It's about informed decision making and good information and data, relationships and networks, and again, happens in diverse ways, both formal and informally. Next slide, please. So, why does career navigation matter? There are a variety of different reasons. This slide includes a couple of examples. So, we know that research is showing by 2031, at least 72% of jobs are going to require some form of post-secondary education and or additional training beyond high school. We know that today's young people are going to have not just multiple jobs, but likely multiple careers throughout their lifetime. We know career navigation doesn't just end when a young person completes high school. And we know things are shifting when it comes to hiring and employer practices. So we've done some surveying work, for example, with employers, and they're becoming more and more interested in hiring candidates that have non-degree credentials or maybe shorter term workforce training programs. So that's a newer area that we're keeping an eye on. We know there's a push towards skills-based hiring. We know there's AI disruption. So a lot is happening just in the hiring space generally that we need to help young people be able to navigate and really understand broadly. Next slide. And when we think about career navigation, we know this is not something that can or should just happen within one system. There are multiple partners and stakeholders that should be involved, including secondary and post-secondary partners and systems and educators. Employers play a key role as well in helping young people understand different career opportunities, explore different opportunities, including work-based learning. We know intermediaries play a key role here in coordinating between education and employers. Workforce development boards are key in terms of providing labor market information. CBOs play a key role, and I know that this list is not exhaustive. There are many others, including our health and human services partners as well. And so, how can we think about policy that can be put forward at the state level to help encourage these entities to come together to work together in a way that's ultimately going to help young people? So, next slide. So at JFF, we're becoming more and more interested in bolstering the role the public sector plays in supporting career navigation. At the broadest sense, we think states have a critical role to play when it comes to articulating that statewide vision for career navigation, when it comes to setting definitions and standards across systems so that no matter what door a young person is entering into or a part of, that they're getting good in the same type of information, that the state has a role to play deploying professional development to the array of practitioners and individuals who are tapped with supporting young people in navigating, that states are providing financial resources and incentives, and developing that statewide infrastructure like good data systems, tools, frameworks, and systems alignment. So a lot of those key levers that Jerry had pointed to earlier. Next slide. Great. So now I'm excited to share with you some key findings from our 50-state policy scan on career navigation. Before I show you the results, I do want to talk a little bit about why we do 50-state policy scans at JFF generally and why we think they're important. So one big reason is because we believe this process in scanning across all states on key policies is critical in helping us really in the field really determine what the lay of the land looks like in a particular issue area. And then from there, we're able to develop policy recommendations that are specifically targeting gaps that we're seeing across the country. We also see these 50 state scans as being good advocacy tools as well. So when we go and meet with state leaders, no state wants to be at the end of the list, right? They want to be leading the pack. They want to ensure that they're in line with their peers or their regions when it comes to key policies that are going to help with education and economic development. And that's really critical, especially during a time in which states are wanting to keep talent within their state. They're wanting to really compel more businesses to come to their state. So we've had a lot of great reception with these types of tools and sharing results with policymakers as well. So those are two big reasons why we think these types of 50 state scans are helpful for not just us, but the broader field as well. So let's go ahead and dig into the results. So what we ended up doing, this was released earlier this year, and we ended up scanning for the adoption of 19 best-in-class policies that we had sort of put that list together with our key partners as it relates to career navigation across these four components. One area is actionable information. We scanned for policies that were really focused there on access to good information and data, so young people could understand the variety of post-secondary education and career options available to them. Personalized guidance was another section around that, really that one-on-one advising and counseling support that young people receive. The third bucket largely being around work-based learning, and that being a lever for navigating and helping young people better understand what path to pursue. And then the fourth bucket being around short-term credentials. This was really stemmed from a lot of surveying work we've done with young people and them wanting to better understand what are the variety of options available to them after high school that are not that traditional direct to college route. So we did some scanning around policies in that space as well. And also want to note that we ended up in our report listing 16 other key state policies that we believe are important for career navigation, but are not, the results are included in our paper because we don't have 50 state data on many of those other areas. So lots of gaps that we're hoping to fill with our partners in this space. Next slide. All right, so let's get into the findings. Overall, across the 19, again, exemplary policies we scanned for, we found that few states are adopting most of those policies that we believe contribute to a comprehensive and effective career navigation system. Only 6 states have adopted more than half of the recommended policies that we scanned for. Around 31 states have adopted less than a third of those policies. Next slide. So where are states making progress? Across those four domains, we found the most progress in that work-based learning bucket and that short-term credential bucket. So with 24 states providing funding for secondary work-based learning programs, 27 states providing financial incentives to employers to engage in work-based learning, and roughly 24 states increasing financial aid for high-quality short-term in-demand credential programs. So 2 areas where we're seeing the most progress. Next slide. And then where are there gaps? The main areas include setting quality standards, improving data infrastructure, and incentivizing that cross-system alignment. With only 6 states having quality standards for work-based learning, only 6 states having policies around that's a statewide infrastructure to support partnerships across education and work. So really in that work-based learning space. And then only 8 states integrating, disaggregating, and publicizing data on learners' earnings and employment after high school. So a lot more to be done across states in the quality standard space, data infrastructure, and that cross-system alignment. Next slide. So from here at JFF, what we're going to be doing on our policy team is leaning in more so into that personalized career guidance space, so that counseling space. And before digging into that further, I want to provide some evidence on the imperative for doing so. So over the past few years, we've been conducting a variety of different surveys among young people, parents, and school counselors and advisors to better understand how they feel on different aspects in this area. So one is in 2023, we found that only 35% of 16 to 24-year-olds responded. These are individuals who were not in college. They were unsure about their career plan, and they said that they were satisfied with the resources available to them to connect them to their interests and careers. In 2025, we found that nearly 70% of Gen Z reported knowing nothing at all or only little about pathways like certification programs, internships, apprenticeships, or starting a business. Similarly, 60% of parents and caregivers we surveyed mentioned knowing nothing or little about those pathways as well. And then when we surveyed career navigation practitioners and counselors, 40% reported that they were not at all confident or only somewhat confident in helping learners navigate non-traditional career pathways. So anything beyond the high school to college route, counselors were not feeling comfortable by and large on advising young people on a variety of different options for them after high school and advising around careers. So two key takeaways on my end regarding these results. First, we need to arm students and their families with reliable, easy to understand, and easy to access information to help guide their decision making. And second, we need to devote greater attention and effort to building capacity to deliver personalized guidance in places and spaces where young people are so they can navigate what's next after high school. And policy, of course, plays a key role in this space. So last couple of slides before I pass it to Deanne. Here, just want to zoom in even more into our 50-state policy findings around that personalized guidance bucket. So we found that only 6 states have quality standards for career counseling at the secondary level. Only 17 states provide targeted professional development for career counseling and advisement at the secondary level. And only 21 states are leveraging their federal Perkins 5 CTE dollars to improve career guidance programs. So a lot more, we think, needs to be done from a policy perspective in these areas. And we're also interested in how states are doing on these domains, even at the post-secondary level too. We just didn't have 50 state data on that end. Next slide. And so one thing wanted to note for you all is we're continuing to track state legislative activity. We found that in 2025, so just this year, over 300 bills have been introduced across the country aimed at improving and expanding access for young people in post-secondary and career advising and exploration settings. I think this number actually, we have updated figures to be a little bit more as we kind of bring in what the remaining policy actions towards the end of this year. And then we're noticing that around 32 states have enacted a combined 87 proposals into law aimed at career navigation and advising. So we list a few examples here that you all can dig into later. Louisiana, Texas, and California have been doing some interesting things. Next slide. And so as a result of all of this, we recently put out our state policy agenda for career navigation. We'll link to that in the chat. It largely focuses on a lot of what I just already talked about, the need for states to craft that statewide career navigation vision, a need for states to review what are they doing in this space already and figure out where there's gaps or where additional support is needed, a need to invest and expand access to career navigation, integrate tech tools and platforms, adopt quality standards for career advising, incentivizing cross-system collaboration, expanding career exploration and exposure activities, building the research base. And I do want to just end with, there is a key recommendation and component within our agenda that is targeted at those academic and career plans that many states have adopted or mandated. So very much looking forward to what North Carolina is doing in that space to really use that as a lever for good work on the ground. And I believe that's my next slide, my last slide. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Erica. And thanks for asking me to join today, to Jerry and to Erica. I appreciate it. I am Deanne Meadows. I'm the Deputy Director for Regional Support with My Future NC. We are a nonprofit out of North Carolina, and we are the intermediary that basically is working on our state's educational attainment goal. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself first. I am just recently joined the organization about a year ago, retired as a superintendent a year and a half ago, was a public school educator for 34 years, and was a superintendent in a small rural, high poverty district that was actually declared, the county that I worked, that I was a superintendent for, was declared one of 5 counties in the state as a dying county because the population was declining so much and there was just not much there that was, available for students or for adults in terms of the workforce. So this is a big topic for me in terms of how we help students really prepare for their future when there might be a lack of options available, even though we know there have to be some options out there for them, and how do we help them to identify them? So next slide, please. Oops, next slide, please. So let me tell you a little bit about our organization. My Future NC actually is the nonprofit that facilitates the work on our state's goal. We have a goal that was put into law. It's a bipartisan law in 2019 that is a goal for educational attainment of 2 million North Carolinians aged 25 to 44 with a degree or a credential by 2030. And My Future NC is the organization that basically tracks that goal. So we actually, every year we report how are we doing, how are we progressing on that particular goal. And we are continuing to make progress. We also look at 18 specific KPIs that start from elementary or actually pre-K, and they go all the way into the workforce. So we're looking at the entire pipeline of education to workforce through our data points. We have 3 main priorities that speak to those data points. One is we have 2 lobbyists on staff, so we really work for policy and advocacy. We believe that policy and advocacy is vital to the work. There are many policies, just as Erica was saying, that can make open the doors much easier for people, break down barriers. And so that is, we have a policy agenda every year that focuses on educational attainment. We track data, like I just said, about the 18 KPIs and the overall goal for the state. We also work on local work. So we try to build and accelerate action across the state by trying to provide supports, trying to figure out what are best practices, what are those things that should be happening across to improve the educational outcomes for every North Carolinian so that they can be able to have an opportunity for a living wage when they're employed. We Our goal, even though it is 2030, and some of you might be thinking, well, 25 to 44 really doesn't have anything to do with high school or K-12, but we look at the entire pipeline. And so we're looking at beyond 2030. We want to build a pipeline that works for all students beyond 2030 so that when they enter pre-K, all the way through work, they have a good path that they can have be able to have a good job at the end. Next slide, please. So we actually, in terms of specifically with career development plans, the General Assembly put in a law that started in 2024. The law is not it's not broad. It's really just requires that every student in 8th grade has to have a career development plan. They then have to revisit the career development plan in 10th grade. And so they actually, even though it's in law, this could become just a transactional activity for students. You know, you can be compliant with a law if you do a bare minimum. And that's really where our law is, that they just have to complete that career development plan. So that was a concern for us in terms of what really do we need students to do beyond just filling out that piece of paper so that they have a career development plan. Next slide, please. So just a few data points to speak to, because data is one of our big areas that, in 2000, 87% of students had at least one job before graduation. In 2023, it was only 56%. What does that say about students' experiences or how they can even connect to one, the durable skills of having a job and those experiences, but also just knowing what's out there? What are the potential career opportunities if I'm not getting any kind of experience while I'm still in high school? So it's important, that awareness, that exposure, really, what are those experiences that they need? Next slide, please. Obviously, I'm sure all of you have seen this type of data before that speaks to, the earnings potential as you earn more credentials and you earn more degrees, the decreasing unemployment rate as your education increases. And so for us, obviously, with the educational attainment goal, we want to continue to see the increases in that educational attainment. But also, the decisions that students are making in high school and middle school and high school obviously are going to impact their future. If they are making decisions that a high school diploma is sufficient, obviously for their entire future, that is going to have an impact. How do we help students to make better decisions while they have an opportunity to have every option open? In North Carolina, we also have a data point that looks at opportunity youth. That is the number of students that are not working and not in school between the ages of 16 and 24. 10% of the students or the people ages 16 to 24 in North Carolina are opportunity youth. It's about 135,000 people. That's a lot of people to not be in school and not working. And really, if we provide them a better opportunity for career planning prior to age 16 or while they're in high school, we should be able to decrease the number of students that are falling into that data point. But do they see a connection to what's going to happen after school before they actually make that decision to drop out or to fall out of that working environment or that learning environment? Next slide, please. So we have worked closely with our partners, which really is important. This is Jerry alluded to this, and so did Erica, that you need more than just one entity, more than just the high school or more than just the middle school to be able to make something like this happen. Career planning, career navigation, it takes more than just the school counselor. It takes more than just the student. It takes more than just the parent. And it takes more than just that school. It really is a community effort for career planning. So we built a state level collaborative that really is working to try to figure out what are the barriers for true career planning beyond just filling out a career development plan. How do we provide resources? How do we provide professional development to really be able to help school communities do a better job with career planning? As a former rural superintendent, in most of our rural communities in North Carolina, it's a very high percentage of students that stay once they graduate from high school within that community. They really aren't moving somewhere else. And so, how do we help students to know about what's happening in their own community so that they can prepare and make decisions about what they want to do after whatever educational decision they make in high school or post-secondary? Next slide, please. So we have been very fortunate in North Carolina. I know that Jerry had spoken about policy is important, the incentives are important. So an incentive that we have in North Carolina is the state has developed what's called NC Careers. It is a free online tool to help students really do career navigation. Now, obviously, an online tool is not the only thing that's needed for career planning, but it is a good way a good start. The students are able to, it actually is available for anybody, K to gray. So it's for adults as well. It links to their CFNC, which is their financial aid, our financial aid system, links to that login where they fill out college applications, they do any financial aid applications. All of that is linked, but then it also is linked to our workforce boards. So adults can actually log in and complete their career navigation and a career development plan all within this platform. So the students actually can house their career development plan, any decisions that they make along the way or they want to research. They learn about a new job. They can look for some different ideas, some different options in NC Careers and save all that information along the way. It actually is a place that they can, as I said, fill out just college applications from it. It links right to it. So all the information they're finding in there and learning about their future can link right back to each step along the way as they move through high school, into post-secondary, and into the actual workforce. We actually have had school districts that actually have the parents and the students sit down together and fill out a career development plan and do the career navigation together so that parents learn more about what's actually career planning. What are the types of decisions that students are having to make? They may be making them for themselves as well. Next slide, please. So we have been able to partner with JFF through a grant that's through the Launch Initiative. And in that, we are really trying to expand the career development plan into the next part of what Jerry was speaking to, which is the support. We need to provide supports to schools, to districts about how do you really do career planning. So through the launch program and grant, we are building regional teams. Those teams are made up of state leaders or people from state organizations, our Department of Public Instruction, the group that leads the CFNC or the college applications and financial aid. We have regional people for that, plus the people from My Future NC. And they're going to work with people, or they're working with people from the school districts who are experts in career planning to develop models that can be used across the entire region, can be used in different districts, develop tools, resources that schools and districts can use, but then can also be replicated across the state. Our hope is that once we develop these tools, these different support mechanisms for districts and schools, that our Department of Public Instruction will be able to use those with other regions across the state and use those as best practices and ideas for other communities to be able to come together and really wrap their arms around career planning for students. If we don't, while they're in high school, middle school and high school, really provide true career planning for students, they aren't going to make that connection to keep them from falling into that opportunity youth data, but they also aren't going to be able to make informed decisions about their future. And that's ultimately what we should be doing in school. As a superintendent, that was what I felt very strongly was our role, was to be able to help students make an informed decision about their future. We want them to be successful. We want them to have a good job. How do we ensure them, give them the information they need to be able to make that informed decision, whatever decision that may be? Military, career, college, a credential, going straight to work, whatever it is, how do we help them to make sure that it's an informed decision when they make that decision? So I'm going to turn it back to Jerry unless there's something else you need me to say, but I appreciate you having me here today.
Thank you, Deanne, and thank you, Erica. Um, I'd really love to like what's resonating for me is you just like finished there and thinking about again, you're an intermediary who's trying to build a culture for implementation of the mandate, and building a culture of like a collaborative implementation versus let's say a compliance driven of like which you did say like okay, who in the school owns the 6-year plan, like that could be that's the quickest route to meeting the mandate would be assign an owner and make sure that they check off every student has done this plan in 8th grade and then again at high school. And the lens that my future NC is taking is No, this is an opportunity to transform the culture of collaboration between our education and local workforce actors and systems. And so I think that lens is just like super important because at the end of the day, this helm exists for that culture change and behavior change. Like behavior is going to change as we outlined in the policy 101, right? Like people are going to meet mandates because accountability exists. But if we can use mandates to create culture change, that's obviously the ideal and culture change in a positive way. And so that's why we value intermediaries so highly, and why we value partnerships so highly. So on that note, I'd love to just know if anyone wants to raise their hand and direct a question toward Erica or Deanne. And we've also just got when we close in the next few minutes, we we've got some additional resources to share, just connecting these dots, and we're going to sort of like give you a preview of what's coming in 2026. So yeah, we're about 30 people outside of the speakers. Like you can feel free to come off mute. Um, I think you can control that. Courtney will correct me if I'm wrong.
You can.
I could ask a question. Perhaps you already covered this, but I was curious. How are you thinking about how states measure the quality of navigation, not just the access to navigation tools? For example, what indicators could best capture whether a young person experiences true clarity rather than just exposure to information?
Yeah, I am happy to take that. That's a great question. And it's actually one of the biggest gaps that we're seeing in the field in terms of states thinking and measuring quality. What we are seeing in this space is more around states developing a framework that sort of defines what they see as quality career coaching. So, one state that has done this includes Indiana. We know Louisiana just recently passed legislation at the post-secondary side to bring a task force together to think about what does quality career coaching look within post-secondary settings. So a lot of frameworks and guides, which we think are helpful and critical. It's a part of our key policy agenda. But then moving beyond that to measurement is a big, big question that we would love to learn if any state is doing that well. What are they exactly are they measuring? We've been one just last example is that we've connected with folks over in Mississippi who has provided dedicated state funds to the workforce development side to place career coaches within high schools. So they're right now strategically thinking about how to measure then impact and quality. So thinking about, do a certain amount of in-depth career sessions. What does that lead to? One is that one sort of touch point less effective than three? So they're not quite at the metric point yet, but that's something that we would love to dig into further. But it's a really, really great question.
Great
Yeah, sure.
answer. Thank you.
Yeah, Deanne, I don't know if North Carolina is thinking about that at all. Welcome for you to add if there's anything there.
Yeah, I would just say that's the reason why we really are doing these regional pilots is to try to improve the quality truly of career planning, it not just be transactional as to what you were alluding to. We really do want it to be quality. Have we figured out a measurement yet? No. I think we still need to really develop the models of what quality career planning and career navigation really is. And that's what we're in the process of doing is really trying to identify what does that mean for people when you speak to true essential career planning or career navigation. Um, so if somebody comes up with one, that would be great.
It's a really good question, and um, I was scrolling through the chat, so I was like, I think someone from Mississippi is in here. And then Chris, thank you for adding that to the chat because I that you gave the answer that just to confirm. And we also work with the state of Maryland, who has a very similar, it sounds like, to Mississippi approach of their blueprint for Maryland's future focuses on career counseling and created funding that flows to the local workforce board and local education agency. And they have to have an MOU between the LEA, the workforce board, and the community college to hire career coaches. And they're not necessarily attached to every specific school, but it's a per pupil allocation that the LEA and the workforce board make a determination of how many coaches they can hire and where they place them. So there's definitely attraction here. And Sophie, to your question, like that is, I think, key of like, what's this balance between like, and we were having a little conversation in the chat earlier of like qualifications, training, expectations, and then the big question of, okay, then what's the data that we capture and how is it shared? Which I don't have to tell you all, if you're talking about workforce boards versus schools, you get into some really, really difficult data sharing challenges of, who can have access to, individual student data. So big questions to be answered. I'll just making a note of Maryland, Kentucky, North Carolina are all states that are really have career advising in focus among the others mentioned, but those also happen to be in this launch initiative, and we're actually going to be, I think, as a product of their JFF is one of several partners, JFF, New America, Advance, CTE orgs, and ESG, all orgs you might know. We're working together on that, and that's a publication that we're actually going to create in 2026, focused on the quality standards around career advising. So, um, just that's kind of upcoming and in our radar as well. So, it's 2:55 Central Standard Time. Let's close this out and give you a little preview of what's coming up for us. Um, a lot of things happening on the federal level, as we talked about. So we're staying up to date, trying to help ourselves and others make sense of what is changing at the federal level when it comes to workforce development. So we've got a policy briefing set up in mid-January. Um, our next sort of more specific to this Pathways of Prosperity Network community of practice will be How We See Us, which is the title of Michaela Leslie Rule's book, which we featured. She was a keynote speaker at our past Fall Institute. And so it's a little follow-up conversation. It's focused on youth voice in career development. And she has this amazing framework. If you're not familiar with Michaela, she has this beautiful framework that's focused on these ideas of surviving, striving, and thriving in terms of how youth sort of see their own development and their navigation of these systems and choices and education and training. Next, in April, we will have our Spring Institute down in New Orleans. Should be a perfect time to be in New Orleans. So if you're on this list to get these invites, you'll get updated information there about how to join us in person. And finally, in the link here, you can also share our newsletter if you have colleagues who you think might be interested in any of this content along the way. Big shout out to Deanne for giving us her time from North Carolina. And thank you, Erica, for coming in and giving us the policy perspective. Lots of work with JFF with folks on the Hill at the Capitol. So look out for Erica's work in the news in terms of just like if you're really into tracking policy. And otherwise, be in touch with us if there's anything that you need from us as a follow-up. Thanks, everybody. Have a great holiday. Wishing you all great things in the coming year.
Thanks, everyone.